So I'd like to invite, we have 5 great speakers and 2 from traditional banking and 3 from the service providers. The first one is Birna Einarsdóttir. She's also a treasurer of ours here in Iceland. She's our female CEO of Íslandsbanki, one of the 3 largest banks. She's been CEO since the crisis and has taken the bank from a firefighting mode to really transition, core banking change, and now looking into the future. So Birna, I'd like to invite you to the stage. We also have Hrefna Ásgeirsdóttir. So Hrefna is VP Engineering at Meniga, and she oversees the software development across the company and has served in various key positions as well as head of the innovation team and product manager, and also worked previously at Landsbanki and at Vania, so bringing much experience to the team here. So welcome. I'm very happy because I have a fellow Canadian, Mehta, who you met before, so as head of innovation at Tangerine. So welcome. Áslaug Hafsteinsdóttir is VP Professional Services at Meniga, so probably most of you know her here for the implementations of your various programs. She oversees the new integration projects, and she's worked as well in risk management at Landsbanki, so a really good mix actually to bring here. So welcome, Áslaug. Finally, a really good female row, isn't it? And we have one more. We've got Sigyn Jónsdóttir. She's head of professional services for Mice and Men. Mice and Men is an Icelandic software company providing network management tools to global enterprises. She's also chair of another fantastic organization called YAK, Young Professional Women in Iceland, and she focuses on empowering young women as future leaders, which is really important. Before joining Mice and Men, she was a project manager at the Central Bank of Iceland and Meniga, and she's on the board of Muir, which is a virtual reality startup. So welcome. So I think this was a really good question, actually, the first one. I'll probably address this to both Jay and Birna. How would you change banks to make them more diverse?
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I often say when it comes to diversity, especially when it comes to gender issues, and I think it is when there's a will, there's a way. And I think that is exactly the same when you're talking about diversity overall. I think you just need to think about every time that you both organize the organizational structure, and if you have opportunity to change some of the seats in the management team, for example, that you really consider, what kind of talent do you want from gender, education, background, everything before you decide to go ahead. And so that is why I'm saying, if there's a will, there's a way. You can use all opportunities you have to do changes. So, but of course the culture needs to be there. The board need to be on the same opinion. And at Íslandsbanki that has not been a problem. So if you want to do it, you can do it.
Yeah, so from a Tangerine perspective, I fully agree. I think that's exactly the way. And I think there's 2 aspects I think we have to tackle. First, it's we've been in a position now where we actually have, at least at Tangerine, quite a few female leaders, in great spots. And I think what I think we need to see is, and what I'm seeing that's working, is having them now start talking to some of the younger kids. Start to grow the pipeline. I think what part of the issue that we're seeing is, and I'm seeing it with myself, with my 13-year-old daughter, how it's very difficult to keep them engaged in some areas, just because, and not because, she's brilliant, she's a very smart kid, but because she's not being engaged and interested in that space and falls away. So I think by having these mentors now that can pull them along, I think that's one area that's very strong and I think would really help in evening this out over time. The other area that we've found is we've created these these collaboration areas now. And so what we've done is we reconfigured, areas of our office. And what we've done is we've actually brought in folks from all different areas. We've got designers, we have developers, so we call them full stack teams, but it's not from a technical perspective. They're quite literally from everywhere. And what ends up happening is we end up delivering better solutions. Just because, our customers are diverse, so it's a disservice if we're not giving diverse solutions out back to them.
So in terms of the culture, in terms of this change, how is this something that comes, yourself, you're the CEO, the tone at the top, how much is it that it's coming there, and where do people get their inspiration for this? Especially, we're a small country here in Iceland, and there's only so much we can do with 300,000 people who live here. So where do you get inspiration to make this cultural change?
Yeah, it's interesting that you're saying a tone from the top. Everything that if you need to change culture, it needs to come from the top. And that is why I look so exhausted, because you need to be really involved and really focused on all the main subjects that you want to implement. But the tools and I think role models are extremely important. And also what I think companies should really ensure that they don't do is to put diversity into some kind of group work, or there's a special task force that should look after it. It needs to be on the table, on the board, on the management board. Otherwise, nothing is going to happen. I have been sitting in so many of those committees, nothing happens. And that is usually they put the committees together to try to avoid doing something about it. They can say that they have put together a committee and that's enough. So that is extremely important. It needs to be on the table of the top management boards. Role models, as I say, are extremely important. You mentioned, for example, Vigdís Finnbogadóttir. She was a very important role model for me. And that is something that we women in business in Iceland, we need to take time to be role models. And I spend quite a lot of time speaking to students, younger women and women in business to try to do something about being an important role model. I'm not saying I'm perfect all the time, but I try.
I think the next question I'd like to ask Áslaug and Sigyn, because you're both in professional services and working internationally, so not just in Iceland. Where do you see in certain countries, organizations where they've done well in terms of this change? Because this change is for the future in terms of having diversity. So where they've done well, and where are there countries that you could say, they could do a bit better, and why?
Well, we definitely see the most diverse teams in Scandinavia, I would say. And as we move further south, there is less diversity with regards to gender, and I think that we see that as a reflection of the societies itself. But on the other hand, we also have a customer in Southeast Asia where we have very strong role model, where we have a female CEO, which is also poses as a great example. So it's very difficult to put our customers in certain boxes because they vary quite a lot, and it depends on the organizations.
Yeah, maybe adding to digital and diversity in services all around the world. I think that what's interesting is that it seems to me that we need different approaches, digital and I'm going to say analog, to giving the best services to people today, because it seems like companies that focus on automation of like mundane tasks while giving really personalized and deep dive human services are the ones that are excelling. So in professional services, I try to focus on that. And if you want to bring diverse services, you need a diverse team.
So if I go to Hrefna, because I've talked a bit about the female economy, and in Meniga I've seen a few interesting developments, and I'd love if you could tell us a little bit about that focus for Meniga.
Yeah, when we created our new app, we wanted to have it simple and fun and be approachable. But we have never focused on designing for one segment over the other. We had a discussion with a bank that wanted to create a banking app for women, and it was supposed to be pink and have less functionality and more pictures than numbers. And we did not share vision with this bank, and yes. But we are believers of that diversity will give you better product. And I encourage everyone in here to do as we do, set up a team of people that are female, male, people from different backgrounds, you know, put engineers and designers together exactly like Tangerine is doing. It's gonna pay off. It's gonna give you a better product.
And in terms of, I mean, you're two organizations, so at Tangerine and Íslandsbanki, are you looking at this niche market, at the female economy, and how are you addressing this?
So we're not similar. Like we're not really targeting it separately. Like I said, we've created cross-functional teams that are working together to deliver a product. You know, that's for everybody. That's sort of. I mean, what we do is we do have like client advisory councils and things like that, where it's a broad group, and so we test it there as well to make sure we're not missing anything as a secondary check. But we're not really trying to target separately. Like, no, we're not building pink apps.
I'd like to challenge you.
Okay.
Because, you know, of course, I lived in Toronto and everybody likes the Raptors.
Yes.
But
so
maybe women are not so much into basketball. And so your recipe, instead of just focusing purely on these sports, is there something that you've thought of how you can make it more female?
That's a good question. So it's at a concept stage, the recipes, right? So we're early on. The two or three things that we kind of focused on, one was around vacations, you know, being able, based on weather. Also, you know, we have another one that was based around sports. And then we picked a third one that's more based around automation inside the house. So, you know, if you turn your Nest thermostat down, you can take extra, you know, whatever your savings are, put it towards a. So we're picking different segments. But it's more at a test and learn phase right now. And so definitely the team that's going to be delivering on this has females as part of that team. And they've already been giving ideas. It's been put part of the backlog. And you know, the PO on that team is actually female. We'll be prioritizing things as well based on all of their input. So we will be targeting that 100%.
I think there was a good question, I think, up here that was, that kind of went down, but it was about, you know, just focusing on the women. I think there's also the focus on diversity. I mean, Iceland is quite homogenic, although we do have we have a very big Polish population, and there's some work that's done around that. I don't know if maybe, Birna, you could speak a little bit about that. And also, Jay, I'd like to hear from you, because Canada is probably one of the most diverse nations in the world. So how is that also brought into the fold?
Yeah, I can answer that. So it's very true. Like, Toronto is very diverse. Canada, you know, all the major cities are very diverse. And so what we've done is, you know, luckily with the hiring practices and the way we've situated people, we have a mix, like, all sitting together. Like, it's, you know, I wish I had brought a slide with just what that floor looks like. It's you know, I can't say that it's all been by design. It wasn't like we planned for diversity, so we did this. We did it by business need. Our outcome required us to think like this. And what we've done is, I mean, like, when I say they're sitting together, like, that's their permanent desks. And we don't have, like, lines of, you know, designers in one stream of tables and another stream of tables with developers and testers. They're actually, like, mixed, multi-functional people all at one table, and that's their permanent desk. And you know, we make sure that they go out and enjoy, you know, celebrations together. You know, when they do their sprint reviews, all of them are talking, so they're all getting a voice in there. we're really trying to show how, like through demonstration, how this can change, and what these type of things will hopefully spread to others around the company, right? And then the other nice thing that we do is through Scotia being our parent, we're sponsoring other events that are going on. So, for example, similar to what you had up here, we're sponsoring to a Women Founders Entrepreneurial Accelerator. So, same concept where we have folks from Tangerine and Scotia on the panel. We'll go there and help them give any expertise we can to help them move their ideas forward, because that's another area that gets missed. Sometimes there's a great idea, but if the panel that's helping doesn't understand the idea, they'll just put a pass on it. And so that will hold some of these great ideas from moving forward.
Great, thanks. I want to ask Sigyn, because you are part of this other women's association, how are you promoting women business leaders here in Iceland, and what lessons can we learn from that?
Well, so young professional women in Iceland, or ÖAK, as you said, we aim to inspire future leaders. And we also demand equality for all, nothing, we don't want discrimination based on gender or religion or anything. And what we do is we host events, and we have panels, and we have a conference here in March if anyone's interested. But we also, we kind of don't want to be told to lean in constantly, because we've been trying to lean in for years, and I think it's time to just call out government and organizations on making the change, because it's really hard to try to fit into a system that's not designed for diversity at all.
I like this comment here, niche marketing women is half the world population. That's correct.
Yeah, me too.
It is a huge market. I think, there's always this sensitive talk about Me Too, and I think it's something that needs to be addressed absolutely head on. I'd like to know, I think, Birna, a little bit how you've looked at this within Íslandsbanki and also in the market, how you see it. Because there are issues here in Iceland. Just recently, our energy company had a big Me Too action that was called out. So how is it that we can change our organizations here?
I think this is, as I said before, it is in the company culture that we need to create. We have been quite active on the Me Too issue. We have both, I have been hosting kind of listening lunch with over 100, maybe 150 women inside Íslandsbanki, only women, to try to see how big the problem is and what we can do about it, and how we can communicate solutions in a better way. We have also been running this barbershop that is for men only. Why are we doing it separately? I think that has been quite useful during this period where Me Too has been very much in the media. And based on this, we have formed kind of our procedures, and the message is very simple. This will not be tolerated in the bank, and we will not only from co-workers but also from customers, because the stories are equally as many from customers. And I think it is important for staff to know that we will support them. Of course, it will be difficult to lose a big customer because of this, but we will support the staff member in this. So I think we have done quite a lot, but for example, now we are doing our annual internal research among our staffs, and we are asking about this because we have done it before, and I was so surprised how high percent of women inside the bank had experienced something for the last 12 months. Very disappointing figures, so I hope we will see a better result now.
I think here there's a top question, which is diversity is useless without inclusion, and it's not only about gender. How could everyone promote inclusion? I think I'll just open it up to who'd like to take this.
Well, at least in my opinion, in a country like Iceland, where we have a language barrier for people that immigrate to Iceland, it's really important to show people the respect of speaking a language that everyone knows and having like an official language within a company. It's not the case for everyone.
But it's fun to say that when I started in Meniga 6.5 years ago, there was always, we had everything in English. Although in Iceland, in the Reykjavik office, we were just 15 people of Icelanders. We always wrote everything in English. I think that is quite impressive. Just in case of someone else with another language would come in the office.
Yes, I think it's very important to be open to different nationalities, have both genders and different backgrounds, because all people, if we have the diversity, we bring different traits to the table. And if we have different traits at the table, then they can complement each other, and we will build a better result. That's a definite positive outcome of having diversity in the workplace. And like in Meniga, we have a very diverse group of nationalities working with us. And in my team of 17 people, we have 5 nationalities. And it's not a problem to speak English on a daily basis. So that shouldn't be a barrier, even in a small community like we have here in Iceland.
Yeah, there was a question earlier. Someone had asked, I'm a guy and I don't speak Icelandic. I moved to Iceland. How is it that I can actually, start working in society? I think myself being a Canadian here, I always say, firstly, learn Icelandic. But secondly, there are organizations such as Men and Mice, such as Meniga, EVE Online. EVE Online, CCP have brought fantastic people here into Iceland, where it's very culturally diverse. And of course, in the tourism industry, there's still some very traditional areas. And I think here, for example, with most of the listed companies, none of them, very few of them, have foreigners on them. I was the only foreigner in Íslandsbanki. I made the effort, though, to learn Icelandic and have everything. Biggest user of Google Translate, by the way. But I think bringing this diversity, such as a nation here in Iceland, and as a lot of you are doing actually in your countries, and even bringing in the lights of Meniga and different people, it brings such different perspectives. But for the one who's looking for work, do look at these more international type industries. I think that's the best way. And network. Go to different groups and find your passion. I play volleyball in my local community, very integrated into the local community, but you have to find your own passion. Maybe you'll find a knitting club. But I don't knit myself. So according to research, this is interesting, led by Harvard Business Review, it's more difficult for women to get promoted in companies with women in top management. I think in Iceland, especially in the women's organizations, and I'm part of a couple, we really focus to support each other. It's so important not to talk down women. There are enough other people to talk down. We need to support each other. But I think, Birna, you have a great example. Your transformation since you've taken over as CEO, there's been a huge change in the bank. I'd love to hear from that, how you've done that.
But I understand exactly what the research is saying, because there are women in top positions that are not promoting women. And there is good examples from the past. For example, when Thatcher was Prime Minister of UK, she didn't promote any women, or she didn't make life easier for women. So, of course, top management women there are just as different as there are many. But I think the culture, as you say, in Iceland has been that women are trying to support each other. And I have heard that also from banks abroad, that they are very much trying to work together to try to move this gender issue forward.
Yeah, I would like to build on this, that I think it's very important to keep in mind that the organizational structure in a historical sense was based or created by men for men. And that's a really important factor. And we are at a point where we need to start changing the organizational structure. And this change needs to happen from elementary school, And it needs to come from young age and move up through the educational system. And business schools, for example, are a really important factor here, because at business schools, they are teaching about organizational structures and how to negotiate and how to behave within an organizational structure. And if we don't approach this from many aspects, then nothing will happen. It's not enough only for a management of one company to change it. It needs to be an overall change.
So here, there's another question. Diversity is useless without inclusion. It's only about gender. How can we promote, how could everyone promote inclusion? And I think here is really, it's a question for the audience, because they're very senior executives here today, and how is it that we can bring in this diversity to the organization to really make it transformational for the future? And I think, a lot of it comes down to this innovation that we're looking for, and to be able to service our customer, what the customer expectations are. How do you see this in your role to make that transformation, bring this diversity, to promote this inclusion? Because what barriers could there be that we can try to say, okay, we've got to break down those barriers? It's time for wine.
Yes. So I agree. When I'm speaking diversity from a Tangerine perspective, I'm actually looking at beyond gender. We've got teams that are, from a culture perspective, all different aspects. Like you look, we try to. Again, it hasn't been by plan. I think it sort of happened. I guess part of it is we don't live in the core. We live north of the city, so that in itself draws a diverse group of people. Our client experience team is very good at going out and bringing the right customers inside through campaigns, through surveys, but also just bringing them to our locations to do proper user testing on various things. Hiring practices. I think there's dashboards that our executives are using to be able to help understand what is the state of our current organization. The other thing is we're a very transparent, open organization, right? We don't have offices. Everyone is sitting outside in the open. Even our CEO doesn't have an office, right? It's very open, collaborative environment. I honestly, I do feel like I'm very lucky. I keep talking from Tangerine. I've seen a lot of stuff in Scotia as well. So it's not just, I see it happening. It was a good question earlier about, the fact that little happens due to inertia, or is it an opposition? I think it's actually, it's happening. I mean, from my viewpoint, and I try to spend a lot of time with my daughter in, Girls Can Code and various courses like that. But I think we're to really start to see this, it's just going to take some time. I think we need to get more younger kids getting into these different fields. We have to find ways to engage them at an earlier age, to really enjoy what they're doing. And my son loves Lego. My daughter has access to everything. I'm a technology geek, innovation guy. I have lots of stuff in the house. But it was very clear to me at a young age that my son would go into anything, he'd do things wrong, break things, not be hesitant. My daughter wants me to be perfect. So she tries, doesn't interest it, goes away, and doesn't think about it again. But when I did a little bit of volunteering, I found, there's these other things I can look at, pull stuff off the internet, show her a different way to look at it, more creative, a very different way. She'd get right into it, and she'd be there for hours. And then I realized that's when it triggered for me that I got to change a little bit. It's the awareness that matters. And she's doing a high school project now, where this is the basis of her project. So without me even saying anything, she's figured this out. She's seen it, and she's learned through YouTube. There's a lot of great TEDx videos. There's a lot of good stuff out there. I think it's a matter of figuring out a way to disseminate that information across a broader group of people.
Yeah, I actually think Canada is probably one of the best places to go visit to learn about inclusion and diversity, because it's very much, no one says they're Canadian. You say you're Italian Canadian, or I'm French Canadian, or I'm Spanish Canadian, or Greek Canadian. I think this is this diversity that's really come along, and there is a lot of opportunity. I think it's been great to be able to share your experiences from the panel today, and where we can see really for the future developing as well, and bringing in good talent into organizations. So thank you very much for a great panel, and on to the wine. Huh?